So today my adventures have brought me to the Weald Foundation, and very fortunately they're in the middle of some maintenance on the gorgeous Jagdpanther that you see behind me. I know you guys are probably familiar with this one. If you've been to Jagdpanther Day, then you probably saw it running yourself. That's an awesome event. Do not miss that. More information on that afterwards. But I thought we might learn a little bit about what they are working on today. So I'm going to turn the camera over to our Jagdpanther expert, and he's going to teach you a little bit about the process that they're going through.
Today we're experiencing a few problems with our 12-cylinder engine on the JP. We've been through the process where we got one bank which is running a bit rich, so we're in the process of measuring all the airflows, checking the jets, checking the fluid levels and the float chambers, etc, etc. It's a long, slow process, but we'll get there in the end.
When did you guys discover the issue?
We had an open day a couple of weeks ago. And one bank was sort of firing a bit of smoke out that it wasn't doing before. So it's just a question of checking it out, because you can't afford to have an engine of that size and that capacity running a bit rich on one side. It runs a bit hot one way, so it's sort of counterproductive when trying to get the thing running properly. Yeah, it's just an issue. These old engines and things. Well, we've just resetted the idle speeds for the engine. It should roll over according to the instructions at around about 700 RPM when it's just idling. Obviously we have to let it warm up to do that, and it takes a while to do that. But once it's sorted out, then we can measure the airflows for the individual carburetors. Bearing in mind that we've got 4 individual carburetors and they're all 2 chokes, so you've got a total of 8 chokes running a 12-cylinder engine. And the combinations of all problems involved in all that is quite complex, but as long as we can measure everything and get back to the original data, then we should be able to sort it out.
Hi, my name's Jono. I'm a volunteer down at the Weald Foundation. I've sort of come in on sort of a mechanical maintenance side, not so much on the restoration side. So working with Martin, who you've just spoken to, regarding the tuning of the Maybach engine. We're having issues, as Martin alluded to additional fuel going in on the right bank. So what Martin was alluding to, these are the 4 carburetors. So this is the right bank of the engine, that's 6 cylinders, and that's 6 cylinders. This carburetor feed that side, this carburetor feeds this side. The primary problem we're having is too much fuel on this bank. Now you can see by the soot in that exhaust, compared to the amount of soot in that exhaust. So it's a lot lighter. What we're concerned about, in the bottom of the carburetors, the fuel is pumped and stored. We think they're overfilling the bowls and spilling additional fuel into the carburetors. So now we set the base idle. What we wanted to do was measure the airflow. So we're going to measure the airflow, or the draw from the engine, on each of the carburetors, make sure it's even. But with the popping back and unburnt fuel popping back, one, it's going to be a bit scary trying to do it, but also you're going to get a positive pressure where we want to see the vacuum. So now it's been run, all the bowls will be full to where they're running to the level they will be at while the vehicle's running. Now we're going to take the lids off, all 4, and check those levels. So yeah, that's it really. So yeah, I think Martin would agree with this. Well, this vehicle was restored 15 years ago. And so when you're taking it apart, you make an assumption everything's correct. So you make sure everything matches. But that's a false assumption. So this vehicle was restored 15 years ago and not put together by anybody here. And I think, wasn't it true, one of the people who actually built this engine is dead. So that's how, and so we work on the assumption that everything's correct. It was put together correct, but that's a false assumption. So we're going right down, drilling down into it. And Martin's very knowledgeable, and he's done the research, and we now know exactly the jet sizes, etc. But the first stage is idle, second stage is checking the balance between the carburetors. So basically making sure that this carburetor isn't drawing and putting more fuel in than that one. So we're going to measure across there and across there. But with like I mentioned before, with the additional fuel burning and popping up through, it's not going to be a valid test. So there we are.
So what do you have to do next?
So the next thing is we're going to take the lids off the carburetors and check that the fuel level in the bowls, you can see like there's a little tank on the bottom of the carburetor, that fills with fuel, and that's the reserve of fuel that then gets drawn into the carburetor. If these are overfull, they'll allow too much fuel into the carburetors. So the lids come off, And then in there, there'll be a little tank there, a little tank there, and a little tank there, the same with those, with floats in them. Now the floats come up and close a valve which stops fuel going in. If the floats come up too high, they allow too much fuel in, they overfill, and it basically puts excess fuel in the carburetors, which is why you're seeing the popping and banging. This is it. So yeah, so for example, we've actually measured the engine speed from the crank, because I had a photo tachometer. So we could verify that the rev counter in the vehicle was correct, because we didn't know that was correct. So we now know that's correct. We now know we got the correct base idle, and it's now checking the level of the fuel, get that correct. If it will run without popping, we can then check the airflow, and it might be fixed. Yeah. It might be fixed. We're hoping it is simple as that. It might be we've got too much fuel in one of the carburetors, and it's just overflowing and flooding this right bank, which is why you get the additional black smoke and not there.
I hope you guys enjoyed this little look into their workshop here at the Weald Foundation. If you want to see more from this team, this vehicle, and even more, go ahead and follow them yourselves. I've added the links to their social media and to their channel down below in the description of the video. So go like them, go follow them, and keep up with the stuff going on here, and figure out how you can come visit this vehicle and a few more here at the Weald Foundation, and we'll see you next time.